In the grim darkness of the future, only war remains. And I would love to tell you where I got this file from, but that's the rib here. This the file has been banned. A certain company that will not be named sent a cease and desist to have the creator of this sculpt take it down. So it's actually currently not available. I don't know if I can mention them or not, so I'm just not going to mention them. I'm sure you can probably find it if you really want to go looking, but I won't. Which, I mean, to some degree, I get Games Workshop. Maybe nobody stands to lose more from 3D printing than them because their entire business model is selling small little figures. So, of course, this is a statue, but, you know, you could easily have scaled it down. So, I mean, it's unfortunate because this is a statue and, like, it's really, like, it's amazing and really good and everything. But at the same time, to some degree, I kind of get it. Their entire business model is around, you know, spending like hundreds of dollars for little pieces of plastic that you can print for like 1/100th of that. So it's unfortunate, but part of it. But we're gonna go ahead and put it out. I guess I can still put this video up because we'll see what happens. But I've always loved the design of Space Marines. There is something about, from a miniature standpoint, how simplistic they are to paint, but also how that gives you so much freedom and ability to work on techniques and kind of, they're great. They look really good from a starter aspect of just covering these large kind of contoured surfaces. But then as you start learning new techniques and shading and everything, they're a great test bed to kind of really do that. I think that's why they're so popular with painters and stuff beyond just the game. So I'm looking forward to doing this. Really cool. They also gave you the helmeted version. I think I am going to go with the face though, because if you watch the Wolverine video, I think we kind of cracked the code on how to do skin, so I definitely want to do that. I'll probably paint, I want to find a way to kind of incorporate it into the thing though, so maybe we'll figure out a way like on the base to put it at his feet or something. I don't know, we'll see if we can figure it out, but I still got the rest of it kind of drying, the base and everything, but I'm going to go ahead and get it cleaned up with my X-Acto knife, some barbs and pieces that are still there. We'll get her primed and get started on it. Oh yeah, too, also to reference back to the Wolverine video, this Calidor Sky base, I really like it, but man, it did not work through the airbrush. It is so thick. You can almost see how it's dried up here, how thick this paint is. So I might try to thin it. I'm shaking now. You don't even hear it moving. So I might try to like super thin this down, almost 50-50, and see if it'll go through the airbrush, but I really don't want to have to brush all of this. I mean, look at that. Man, oh, man, Space Marines are badass. All right, here's a nice test fit. Everything is printed. Really good keying. Everything fit really well. I mean, I really don't need to do much sanding on it to get it going. There's a few other pieces I'm just not going to put on because it's very tenderly held together right now. But all in all, really good looking piece. Let's get her primed and get started. All right, so we got everything primed and ready to go. And where we're going to start off is the same thing we did for Wolverine. If you watch that video, is we're just going to do a zenithal highlight with this white ink here, which just gives us a nice, we got it pre-assembled just so we can spray like from the light and kind of let the highlights fall where they may, and that's just a good place to start. So let's go ahead and get it done. All right, so here we coming in. I finally found a new angle on my camera that I think helps me block it less. It's a little top down, so you might not see everything, but it is helping. So here we go, put in the zenithal highlight. This ink comes out pretty good. It does come out of the brush, or out of the airbrush, a little like gunky sometimes, but you can see a few times I take the sponge and just try to soak up where it might have came in a little blotchy, but for the most part it looks good. And here we go. Look at me, just I way overestimated how much blue was in the my mixing cup, and I think you're gonna see a common thread that I believe this is the final go around of this airbrush. It's just not working very well. It's a cheapo one. So I start trying to put the blue on, and you can see me coming back to my arm here. It's just not coming out in a very, very thin layers. I mean, it's going on, but you're going to see here in a minute that it's just not working. So I abandoned ship, and as much as I did not want to, we are going to have to hand brush all of this blue. I think a part of it too is just that army painter, or I'm sorry, the Citadel blue that we were using is a very thick blue. I mean, you can see here, I'm just globbing this stuff on. I'm just trying to get a coverage down, and it's actually covering it remarkably well. So just locked in. I forget what I had on the TV, and just powered through and tried to get all of this base coat of blue on, and see how it goes. This gives you a little bit of a chance. You can see there with the airbrushed blue, how thin that is. Like, look at the front of it there. Like, that's how much was coming out of my airbrush. And you can see as soon as I come over top of it with the brush, just how much more coverage and thicker. Like, we would have been here all night trying to use that airbrush to do this entire thing. So, didn't turn out too bad, but I really think I need to invest in a better airbrush. I even tried super thinning this paint down because I knew going in that this paint was thick, but then it just came out watery. Like, I just couldn't find the right mix, and it was still clogged up anyway. Also, one thing I never really realized as I was going through this process was how Buzz Lightyear, I think, was based on a Space Marine and Space Ranger, and he fights like an insect bug army. So, like, I never really realized that before, because obviously there are some commonalities, like the thick boots and like the neck area there. I think painting that neck was when I finally realized, like, holy crap, Buzz Lightyear is based on 40k Space Marines. You'll see here I am base coating the helmet, even though I'm going to use the Titus head, because as I mentioned in the opening, we're going to try to do something with this helmet in the base to kind of do some storytelling. So we're going to go ahead and put a base coat on. I don't really quite at this point know what I'm going to do, but go ahead. While we're globbing this blue on, we'll get it done. Alright, so after a long time, we finally got all the blue done. And I have to say, honestly, as thick as this stuff was, I mean, you saw me there just absolutely globbing it on. It's ridiculously thick. It covers really well. I came back after like a few hours while I was watching the Super Bowl, and I figured I would have to do like a second coat on a lot of it, and that it would there'd be a lot of spots I missed because I was just going crazy on it to get a first coat down. And it really didn't. There was like only like one or two spots that like some black was showing through it. I had to come back and get it. But other than that, it all covered really well. So let's get in and start doing some detail work. For whatever reason, I like to collect browns. I've always found like you just seem to do a lot of browns on models, whether it's like satchels and belts and pouches and boots and everything. And I don't like when they're all the same color. So I got a decent amount of browns. We're going to do the leather belt, pouches, and just all the kind of browns that are on here. The wraps around the pole here. And let's just start doing some detail work. All right, we're starting first with this Speed Painter. I believe it was called Satchel Brown. It's just a nice, deep, like a dark leathery brown that does really good for like thick belts and thick kind of stuff like that. So you'll see here we're putting it on the kind of main belt, his utility belt, if you want to call it that. It just gives it that nice kind of thick, worn leather look. I really like it over that Zenithal white. It helped give it a little definition. Just looked really good. I really liked using this. Next, we're just coming in with, I believe this is the leather brown, and we're going to do all the little pouches around the belt. And again, you mentioned me say like I like having multiple different browns because you do find that when you start doing these things that there are a lot of browns, and you don't want your boots and belts and clips and satchels and packs and, you know, all the extra belts that they have their belt around their waist and around their shoulders holding their weapons. You don't want them all to be the same kind of brown all the time. So it's nice to have just a few different variations to play off of. It really comes together in the end. Next, this is like a nice red leather kind of brown. I like this one because it just has that, you can see it's got that kind of mahogany, almost like maroon kind of tint to it that I kind of like. And we're just going to put this down on the handle first, but you're going to see later when we come back through to help give it a kind of weathered look. This is something that he would be touching and using a lot, so of all the different leather, this would probably be the most worn because his hands and stuff would be constantly using it and that kind of friction and all that kind of stuff. So this would be a very worn leather. So we're going to start by just kind of putting this base down. So if you're keeping track at home, that's 3 different leathers we've used. And I think what I'm doing here is I'm taking that same reddish leather that I just used and just doing some edge highlights on the edges just to give a little bit of definition, a different color, a little bit of a deeper shade. And then this, we're using that speed paint, which works really good as like a shade. And if you look inside those pouches, you know, there's kind of dips and recesses, and I'm just using that inside there. And then I'm taking that same speed paint and just going over the brown that we had put in before. And the reason I like doing this is because this is like a contrast paint in a way. It's going to build up and soak into all the little recesses. So as this is like a wrap that's layered over and over, this transparent or the speed paint is going to like build up in those recesses and look real nice. So one thing I really didn't anticipate how long this was going to take, but this is one of the things that took me the longest on this model, was just painting all the links of this chain. So they were all just getting a silver finish, but it took quite a while, and since I did the blue first, I had to be pretty careful and making sure I get all of it. But the nice thing is I think it almost looks better sometimes if you don't get all of it, because that black, and it looks pretty good. So what I'm doing here is just all the different weathering. I gotta give it to the creators of this model. There is a lot of like scratches and dents that are built into the model itself. So it's real easy to just, not quite dry brush, I won't say, but like a semi-dry. I mean, it's just towards the end of its life with that bit, and just kind of throwing in some silver to make it look like in all those scratches and buffed areas that it's paint's kind of coming off. So all of this just kind of going back, each piece of the model had some parts like that. So it's just going back through and scraping a little metallic into those areas. And you can see the nice thing too is if you go a little thick in one area, just take your finger and wipe it. It helps add to the effect. It looks fine. Next, we're starting with the edge highlighting. So it's a similar technique, but doing it on all of the edges. So there's lots of kind of, there's lots of seams and edges, and you have to imagine if this was a real armor that's being used in battle for, you know, hundreds of years, all those edges are going to get scrapes and scuffs and nicks. So all those kinds of surface areas, you want to really make sure that you do that edge highlighting. And then while we got the silver out, we're also going to do the buckles on the belt and all these little rivets. So just putting a quick dab on all these little rivet heads, because of course those would also get wear as they stick out. So just anything that looks like if you were to like scrape it against a wall, what would show scratches? That's what you kind of want to hit with that technique. Next, I'm just using this Skeleton Horde, which is a contrast paint that I use a lot. That is from Citadel. And you can see, since we did that zenithal highlight, and this is like a transparent contrast paint, it just goes straight over and you still maintain and keep all of the detail work that you got with your zenithal highlight. So super easy. Here I'm taking a troll teeth white, which is just kind of like an off-white, and doing these scrolls or these seals that go all over the armor. So we don't want to use too white of a white, do a little bit of an off-white. And now finally we're coming in with our black and just doing all of the under I don't know what you'd call it, like an undersuit that's between all the armor. So all of this is black. So it's just real simple, just a straight Vallejo black coming right in and doing all of this on the arms, legs, and the torso.
Textures blend on this journey without end. Inspiration round the bend, every shape a trusty friend. Watch the colors come alive, in the rhythm they collide. Feel the heartbeat deep inside, let the music be your guide. Let the music be your guide.
Next, we're coming in doing some of these seals that all have that kind of red wax look to them. So it really looks like a ink seal that you see on like old parchment and letters. So this is just kind of a brighter red that's going to go in, and it looks really good. It kind of pops because of the white base that we put down first. Whenever you're doing kind of colors like, you know, your reds and your yellows, you always want to start over white, because if you do it over a darker color, it's just going to suck all the brights out of the color. So we also are going to do the same red on all these little seals. I think there's like 4 of them on the model spread around. And next, I really excited about this. I was not happy with the gold I had. I mean, the Vallejo gold is good, but in where it's going to be featured so heavily, like in this model, as opposed to like some detail elements, it always came out kind of gunky. So watch some videos. I think it was Squidmar's video where they did like 20 different golds and tried to figure out what the best gold was. So this is the Citadel, just straight up gold. Went down to my hobby shop. I spent way too much money at the hobby shop. Picked up this gold, and it turned out really good. So it was nice. It just goes on nice and clean. Covers real well, but it's not gunky. Just really happy with it. Really happy with how it turned out. Keep my bald head out of the way. And of course we can't forget about the backpack. I don't think I showed it earlier when I was painting it all blue, but you can see we've already done the edge highlights and scratched it up real good, and now we're finishing off with the gold emblem that's on the back. Next, coming in with one of my favorite tips or tools, the panel liner from Tamina. And this model had plenty of places to dot and kind of put it in, so all these seams and again lines and panel lines, similar to if you've ever worked on like a gunpla or something like that. This just dab it in there, it fills in all these spots, adds a nice little, so it's a kind of a combination of detail but also some washing that can be done with it as well. So just kind of taking it around and kind of pinning it in wherever it wants to go. It was also really nice for these letters that were raised. So you just kind of, you can see here, I'm not really drawing it. You literally just dip it inside the recess and the liquid kind of fills out for the most part. All right, I owe you guys an apology. I just came over last night. I thought I was done, and then I just started chipping away at things. And before you know it, I'd done a bunch of stuff that I hadn't caught you up on. So we fixed the kneecap there and did that. I'm trying to think of everything else we didn't do. I did the gold trim on the pauldrons or shoulder pads, whatever you want to call them. So those look good. The gun, I actually ended up having to put it back all black because it had that zenithal on it, which I didn't want. So then I could come back and dry brush with the metallic and it would have the black under it. So that turned out really good. And I think that's the best way that this metallics works. Anytime I try to just like cover it, it doesn't really work really well, but it works really good as like a dry brush. So I think that turned out good. Did a little touch up on the hands. What else we got going on that we did? The hammer was something I went back and forth and couldn't figure out what I really wanted to do with. I still need some more work on the kind of stone parts. That gray doesn't look really great. But we did the gold and did the metal parts. I did the little tube part black. I think we're gonna try a little storytelling with this here in a little bit, so we'll get to that. What else did we do? We cleaned up a little bit of the blues on some of these gold pieces. I think that catches you guys all up. Did a little panel lining over here. So I think that's where we're at. So as always, you know what I always kind of put off and do last. I think it's time to start working on the face. And I'm thinking we're gonna do kind of the same thing we did on the Wolverine video. We'll probably start with the medium base flesh to give us a nice solid base. And then we'll probably come in with the highlight skin, and then we'll come back with the flesh shade into the darker areas. I think that gave us a pretty good solid on the Wolverine. I'm pretty sure that's what I did on the Wolverine. I did like that. I might have to go back and watch my video to see, but I think that's what we'll do. All right, so this was an adventure. I don't know what happened. At some point trying to clean out my airbrush, I don't know if I didn't put it back together right or whatever, but it instantly just starts throwing out paint, like not even needing to pull the trigger. It's just relentlessly throwing out paint. You can see here, it's coming out just in bunches, completely saturates the model. So I abort and I get out a paper towel and I'm just trying to soak up where it went on ridiculously thick. And just praying that I can kind of thin it out, come back through later with some other layers and you will never notice. But yeah, I don't know what it was. It just instantly just started throwing out paint. So I move on to the next layer and it actually starts doing it again. To this day, I don't really know what it was doing wrong or what I messed up. But at this point, I just stay in it and I just make sure that I cover the entire head because I don't know if I'm going to be able to come back and get this airbrush to work. But I just went ahead, just stuck with it and got it all covered. I think this is yeah, you can see it just go crazy. You see it there at the end, just go crazy. To the point I had to like throw my desk was covered in paint. So I just stuck it in there, covered it, and now I'm just trying to go in. So I'm going in with the darker shade to do some highlighting and like his scar on his head and all that kind of stuff, to do that in like a darker, his lips, all that kind of stuff in the same shade. And now we're starting on the hair. Just starting right where the seams is. One of my biggest challenges is like seams where two different colors meet, and just trying to get that as clean as possible. So I just kind of started there, and then once I felt comfortable, then I could start going a little bit thicker around the rest just to get the first layer of the hair in. And then he's got his like dots or his studs, the little metal studs that are embedded in his forehead. That's what we're doing right here. I've noticed sometimes some people have them gold and some have them silver, but I did it in the gold. Next, we're doing some weathering to the hammer. So I'm just taking this sponge I've got, and I'm using that dark gray speed paint to just try to get it to fall into the cracks. And you can see it just helps define some of those nooks and crannies, and gives it a little bit of a weathered look. Now we're coming back in and doing the eyes, my favorite part. And I gotta say, they actually didn't turn out too bad. I think this is the best eyes I've done. I guess the key is just to do bigger models. And you'll notice here I did put his head back on the body just so I could kind of see the pose as I was trying to figure out where his pupils would be and where he would be looking. All right, so I mentioned I wanted to try something different and kind of tell a little story. For one though, I don't know why I sprayed this with my matte spray and it like is extra shiny. I don't know what happened there. I didn't shake it up enough or something. But so what I want to do is, I still need to finish the helmet, but I'm gonna have the helmet sitting like right around here or something maybe. And I want to have like a splatter effect on the edge of the hammer and over the mask. And I'm thinking what I want to do is I've got this Army Painter data system glow, so it would kind of look like a Necron blood, or maybe you want to call it blood, or whatever liquid they've got running through them. I did look up, the Tyranids do have red blood. They don't have green blood like some people have thought. But I really want to use this kind of glow green. So we're going to try this. What I don't know though is if it needs to go over white, if I can just throw it on there, because I want to do like the splatter effect, but if it's going to be super dark, it kind of defeats the purpose. I want to have like that neon green over the edge of the hammer and over the helmet. So I took this old failed dice roller thing that was too small, and I just put some blue paint on it, and I'm going to try the effect of like putting a little bit of this green on a brush, shooting it with an airbrush, and then splattering it over this, and just see how it looks. If it has that kind of fluorescent green, or if it's going to be super dark and need to go over white, because you can't really do a splatter effect with white and then cover it with green. How will that look? Maybe I'll try that too if it is too dark. So we're just going to do some experimenting on this guy and see if we can't figure out how to kind of add a little thematic drama to the statue. Okay, so here we go, and maybe you've seen this technique before, but what we're going to do is pretty simple. We're just going to load up our brush on an older brush, and then you can see I don't have anything in the airbrush. It's literally just shooting air. But what that does is it hits the paint that's on the brush and then makes it kind of splatter out, so it gives it that kind of splattering effect, like it's just being thrown onto the model. So next, we're starting off, we're masking for the, let's call it a racing stripe or whatever we're going to call the stripe that goes down the middle of the helmet. That's in two stages. It's red and then a white, thicker stripe that goes down that, or maybe it's the other way around. I don't remember. Like it's white within a red stripe on top of that. So we're just masking off the helmet here to lay down that white. Yeah, here we go. Putting down the white first. Probably one of the first times I've really heavily tried just doing some masking, so it worked out pretty good, I think. Still struggling to find a white that I really like. I feel like none of the whites that I've used have really, they're so tricky because you end up seeing like a lot of the brushes. I just can't find like a really nice clean white. I always end up looking like paint, which you don't want. And since I can't airbrush it on, it ends up just looking kind of streaky, but it didn't turn out too bad. There you go, there's your first clean pull. Now we're coming in and doing like the tubes that are on the side of the helmet, just in a black. Kind of ventilated tubes. So Titus can breathe in his helmet. And then the area right around that is like a silver, so we're just coming back in with our metallic silver and doing that kind of section. And then also doing some edge highlighting and brush rough work there. So you can see here we've remasked it again and left just a little bit on the side so we still have the white. And now coming in and doing the red that's down the middle of the helmet. And another pull for you. Had a little bit more bleeding on that one, but we were able to come in and just get it cleaned up and fix it. Now the eyes of the helmet, and they are like a glowing red, so we really want that red to look like it's like a glowing, like lights. So we're gonna put the white down first, and then come in with that same kind of brighter red that we used, I believe the same one that we used on like the seals, which is a little bit more of like a highlighter red than the kind of deeper red that's on the stripe on the helmet, so that way they look a little different. And now we're just taking a little wash, and just, this helmet's been through it. It's going to be on the ground, so it's going to be all roughed up, so we're just going to take some wash in our sponge and just try to make sure it's got a decent coat. And lastly, we're going to redo that same effect again with the Army Painter Effects paint and just shoot that onto the helmet because it looks like we just took out some Necrons. And with that, we're going to call this model done.
Crumble under siege, chaos whispers, dark and breach, purge the